After dropping the Xbox exclusive Sunset Overdrive in 2014, Sony said, "Hey, Insomniac, why don't you come back home? We need another Ratchet & Clank game to go along with the movie we're making." At some point, someone called Insomniac again. They said, "Hey, you want to make a Spider-Man game?" Insomniac said, "Of course, why would you even ask that?" So they did, and ended up making the greatest Spider-Man game of all time. If you couldn't tell, I'm making all of this up because I don't know the timeline of everything. I didn't know what to put here either. So this is my headcanon of how things came to be.
That totally worked last time. Yuri, they still doing construction on 42nd and 1st?
Street's closed for another month. Why?
The story starts off with Peter getting a crime report that all the cops are needed at Fisk Tower. Once Peter gets there, he talks to the police chief, this woman named Yuri. She's his official/unofficial contact in the police department. She tells Peter that the building is locked down tight with Fisk goons, that he needs to do whatever to take him down. After stopping some of Fisk goons from wiping the servers, saving a couple of civilians from debris that fell on them, finding out that some of Yuri's men were on Fisk payroll, Peter makes his way to the top of the building to confront Fisk. Peter and Fisk fight takes them through the entire building, with Peter coming out on top. As Fisk is getting put in the police van, he tells Peter that he was the one that kept the city in order, that after a month he'll want him back. After all of that, Peter gets a call from Octavius. He tells him that the committee is on their way. Where is he? Peter tells him he's on his way. When Peter gets there, Octavius already started the experiment. The experiment is having the ability to control robotic limbs with your mind. The experiment goes haywire, leading to Peter shutting it down. The committee shows up asking, "What's going on here?" Otto tries to explain, but they don't care. Otto tells Peter to take the rest of the day off while he tries to go and calm down the committee. After some time has passed, Peter starts to repair his suit. It got messed up badly during the Fisk fight. As he's working on it, Otto walks in. He sees the suit. Peter tries to explain, but Otto says he knows. The signs were obvious. Spider-Man has Peter making his suits. Peter agrees, asking him not to tell anyone. Otto agrees. He even gives Peter some advice on how to improve the suit. After that, Peter goes to the fee shelter where Martin Lee and Aunt May work. Martin, the guy who owns the place, he's throwing a surprise birthday party for May. He needs Peter to distract her while they set it up. After some heartfelt words are exchanged, the party begins. While at the party, Peter gets a call from Yuri. A silent alarm at Fisk estate sale at the auction house has gone off. She wants Peter to go and see if it's a false alarm. When Peter gets there, the place is being robbed by some guys wearing ancient masks. After stealthily taking out some of those guys, Peter runs into MJ. MJ is a reporter for the Daily Bugle and was investigating some of the items that belong to Fisk. MJ explains what happened before Peter showed up. She was able to find these documents in one of Fisk's statues. It's called Operation Dragon Breath. Peter tells her to go hide while he takes out some more robbers. While taking out those robbers, MJ gets discovered. As Peter saves MJ, one of the robbers runs away with the documents. After taking out the remaining robbers, Peter and MJ agree to meet at a restaurant. Peter and MJ have dinner while talking about the mask the robbers were wearing. Also about the document and what it could mean. Peter tells MJ that he'll go ask Martin Lee about the mask because he's an expert in that stuff. This is when Peter has to leave because the police fly by with sirens blaring. This is when we get one of the last Stan Lee cameos.
Love seeing you two together again. You always were my favorites.
No, I'm not crying, you're crying. Peter gets a call from Yuri saying that Shocker is causing a ruckus, that she needs him to take Shocker down. After talking shit to Shocker while chasing him through the city, Peter takes him down. After that, Peter goes to the shelter to talk to Martin about the mask. Martin tells Peter that the masks are connected to some dangerous things. He also tells him that MJ might want to find a new story because something could happen to her. After talking to Martin, Peter heads back to the lab. When he walks in, Otto has made progress on their robotic limbs project. This is when Norman Osborn walks in and starts taking all of Otto's research, making up some bullshit about work hazards. Once everything is gone, Otto sends Peter home for the day. Peter gets a call from Yuri to meet Officer Davis at the docks. When Peter gets there, he has to take out a few mercenaries. Once Peter finishes taking out all the mercenaries, Officer Davis shows up. Him and Jeff search the warehouse for anything connected to the demons, the group that robbed the auction house. They eventually find a weapons cache full of RPGs, guns, grenades, etc. They catch the demons in the act of moving weapons into a box truck. This leads to a chase throughout the city, causing massive damage. When Peter stops chasing the demons to stop a tanker from hitting a train, the demons have Peter dead to rights, but he's saved by Jeff at the last minute. When Peter gets back from the feast shelter after being evicted from his apartment, Martin stops by to say goodbye. He tells Peter and May he doesn't know when he'll be back, so take care of Feast for him. To recognize Officer Davis for his heroic actions stopping the demons with Peter, Mayor Osborn holds a ceremony of sorts to give Jeff a Medal of Honor. This is when we see why Martin left the feast shelter. He shows up and uses his powers to blow up the ceremony along with some people he planted. This is also when we find out that he's the leader of the demons. Jeff sacrifices himself to save some people from one of the explosions. This is also when we're introduced to Miles. The city holds a funeral for Jeff. At this funeral, Peter introduces himself to Miles. Peter tries to comfort Miles about his father, but he's not trying to hear it. This is where their friendship begins. When Peter and MJ do some more digging into the demons, they find a warehouse that contains a bunch of info on their basis of operation. On the way out, Peter gets attacked by Silver Sable and her army. Yuri shows up to defuse the situation between the two. Sable tells Peter to stay out of the way or next time Yuri can't save him. Skipping forward quite a bit because there's so much going on in this story, when Peter returns to the lab, he notices all these boxes full of equipment from this company called AIM. Otto tells him that they were willing to fund his research in exchange for working on military gear. After making a huge leap in improvements with the robotic limbs project, this is when Peter finds out what's going on with Otto. He has a degenerative neurological disease that will basically turn him into a vegetable. Not an actual vegetable, just meaning that he won't be able to move anymore. This is why he's pushing so hard to get the robotic limbs project fully functioning. He tells Peter if he wants to seek employment somewhere else, he would understand. Peter reassures him that he's not going anywhere. He wants to work with Otto because of his mind, not the money. Jumping forward quite a bit again, because this recap is getting hella long, when Peter returns to Otto's lab, he has completely jumped the gun on the neural interface part of the project. He shows Peter that everything is working, but Peter is not so sure. After fixing a few things, Peter convinces Otto to turn it off because it's still dangerous. After Peter leaves, Otto sees Osborn on TV and cuts the neural interface back on, officially becoming Doc Ock. A prison riot breaks out at the RAB, which is home to all the villains Peter has put away. This leads to the creation of the Sinister Six. The person behind all of this is Otto. He tells a very bruised and battered Peter to stay out of what's coming next. Otto makes his way to Times Square and releases Devil's Breath. He got it from a convoy that was transporting it to a secure location. Skipping all the way to the end of the story, Peter tries to save Osborn and the vaccine for the Devil's Breath, but is stopped by Otto. After going back to the lab to create a suit out of the material Otto's arms are made out of, Peter confronts Otto for the final time. Peter defeats Otto, but the whole thing is bittersweet. Otto tells him that he always knew he was Spider-Man. That if he doesn't want his secret to get out, he'll help him. When Peter tells him no, he tries to manipulate him by saying he's sorry, but Peter doesn't listen, walking away while Otto cries out for him to come back. After all of that, Peter goes back to Feast to try to save Aunt May. She was one of the people who got really sick from Devil's Breath. She tells Peter that she always knew he was Spider-Man and she's proud of him. Peter makes the decision to let her die to save everyone else because there's only enough of the vaccine for one or the other. They hold a funeral for Aunt May. They bury her right next to Ben. Miles shows Peter his powers while he's helping him move into his new apartment. This is when we get the best after credit scene in my opinion. That being, Harry's been around this entire time. He's been in this vat with the symbiote attached to him this whole time. That Norman has been trying to find a way to remove it from him but hasn't. This is when the game ends. Alright, now it's my time to share my thoughts on the story. I love it. I absolutely positively fucking love it. This for me is better than most Spider-Man movies or any other game. The way each character portrayed is spot on to me. Nobody feels off or not like themselves at any point. Peter is our noble hero with the heart of gold that tries to do the best he can for everyone. Otto is a tragic tale of a man being pushed to madness because of something he can't control, which is something I normally do not like, that being the sympathetic villain. That's because a lot of comic book films have done it too much and poorly at that. This story did the sympathetic villain perfectly in my opinion. The change to him having a neurological disease is the reason for the limbs is brilliant. I love how Norman is the catalyst for all the events. I skipped it in the recap, but he and Martin have a history. He's the reason why Martin's parents are dead, but because he's a pompous asshole, he doesn't care or show any regrets until his life is on the line. Even in those moments, his ego takes over, making him even worse. Perfect example is when Otto has him dead to rights, and instead of apologizing to him for taking all his research for the robotic limb stuff, kicking Otto out of Oscorp even though they started it together, he essentially spits in Otto's face, which almost leads to his death. I can't say anything else besides I love it. Also, seeing Peter slowly help Otto build his famous limbs is fucking cool but heartbreaking. The story does such a great job establishing the relationship between the two. Peter admires Otto while Otto values Peter for his mind and skills. It's just sad to see. It makes the final encounter between Otto and Peter that much more heartbreaking. The only two things I didn't care for are MJ and Miles, but for two different reasons. The problem with MJ is that she keeps putting herself in harm's way, trying to be more than what she is. I get it, Insomniac didn't want to make her the same MJ from the comics, the hot redhead damsel in distress, but this wasn't the move either. At the end of the day, she's dealing with enemies that will kill her with no hesitation. Stupid little gadgets that squeak or whatever is not going to save you. Especially when you're talking about somebody like Tombstone, who is basically an evolved version of Luke Cage. Knocking shit over and squeaky toys are not going to save you. At some point, she gets mad at Peter because he calls her out on her bullshit. Now that's bullshit. When it comes to Miles, it comes down to his origin story. I'm not saying that the one we got here is bad or anything. I just don't understand why we haven't got the original one yet. The original one from the Ultimate Comics run where he originated. That one is so good because his father did not like superheroes in any way, shape, or form. His mom dies because of Venom. His uncle Aaron used him for his spider powers. I mean, it's so fucking amazing. I haven't read that in years and I still remember it like it was yesterday. I just wish someone would fucking use it already. There were 3 DLC story expansions released, but I didn't have the time to play them. So I'm just going to give you a quick summary of them. The first one is called The Heist. This one is about Black Cat going up against one of the biggest crime families, the Maggia. This is when Hammerhead makes his introduction into the series. The second one is called Turf Wars. This one is about the war between Hammerhead and Yuri. Hammerhead got his hands on a bunch of Sable tech that was left over from some of the events in the main story, which leads to him using it on cops, including Yuri. The third one is called Silver Lining. This one is about Silver Sable coming back to New York to reclaim her stolen tech from Hammerhead. That's all I got for story related stuff. Let's move on.
All right, put him up. Seriously? Yeah, come on. First thing, don't let the adrenaline get to you. Breathe slow, breathe deep, relax. Hip square to your opponent. let them make the first move. Now use your feet. When they go off balance, look for an opening. Boom.
Like that?
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Only this time, just let me have it. Right on the jock, okay? I can hit.
When it comes to visuals, this is the best any Spider-Man game has ever looked. NYC has never looked so realistic. Whether it be with the details or the scale, it looks amazing. If someone told me it looked exactly like this in real life, I wouldn't doubt them. The amount of NPCs walking around, going about their daily lives, having conversations and yelling at one another, yelling at Spider-Man to get the fuck out the way when he's holding up traffic, is absolutely wonderful on so many levels. All of this fantasticness slides over to the characters and villains. Let's start off with our heroes. If you know, I'm playing the PS4 version of the game. If you don't know, PS4 Peter has a different face from the PS5 version. I still don't fully understand what happened, but I'm not a fan of it. The thing about Peter to me is that he's not the best looking guy out there. Everything else about him makes up for it. That was one of the major problems I had with Andrew Garfield's Peter. This Peter fits that mold me and plenty other people have. Also, based on how long he's been Peter in this game, he looks age appropriate compared to the new one that looks way too young. Overall, I love Peter's design. I can say the same thing about his new default suit design. It took some time to grow on me, but overall it works for this Peter. If the new suit is not your flavor, you can choose from the plethora of alternate suits. There are a total of 47 in this game. Each one comes from the many different forms of media that Spider-Man has had over the decades. As usual, I'm only going to go over my favorites because, like I said, there's 47 of them. So my first favorite suit is the dark suit. The main reason why is because it's so simple but so menacing. Which, by the way, is going to be a common theme amongst the suits I choose. That being how simplistic the designs are, but having a strong presence. Or as some would say, simple yet complex. I love how majority of the suit is jet black with the spider symbol and eyes being dark red. Once again, it's just so simple, menacing, and badass looking. Next up is the negative suit. This one is awesome because it's clearly a play on Mr. Negative's powers. Not only that, it just looks otherworldly with the inverted colors that have a faint movement to them. It's also just a fire suit overall that should be explored more in different media. The next one is the vintage comic book suit. The reason why I love this one is purely based on the goofy factor it brings. The simple fact that you have these fairly realistic but stylized characters and world interacting with this sort of 2D cel-shaded Spider-Man is absolutely hilarious. The art style heavily clashes with one another, but also somehow works in my opinion. Plus, you can never go wrong with the OG Spider-Man suit. After that, we have the web suit, aka the Raimi trilogy suit. I mean, what can I say about this suit that anyone doesn't already know? This suit is beyond iconic. I would even dare to say the definitive suit for Spider-Man. The suit that is synonymous with Spoo-Man as much as Superman's S-Crest. All we needed was the piece of delivery theme playing in the background when this suit was equipped to really bring it home. Also, harassing developers to put this suit in the game is fucking childish. Grow the fuck up, people. Seriously. Our second to last one is the Scarlet Spider 2 suit. This one was worn by Kane, the second Scarlet Spider. This suit is godlike on so many levels that I would genuinely be upset if someone said they didn't like it. Don't get me wrong, you're entitled to your opinion. Like I'm entitled to slash your tires or push you down some stairs or break both of your legs with a baseball bat. All jokes aside, I genuinely love this suit because it's just fucking sexy. Yes, you heard what I said, and I have no shame. I love how majority of the suit is this crimson red with a black accent. The black accent being on the head, shoulders, spider symbol, fingertips, and at the bottom of his feet. It helps cut through the intensity of the crimson red. There's also this little accent of red cutting through the black on the shoulders that goes up to his neck. I mean, it's just fucking amazing on so many levels. Our last and final suit is the Last Stand suit. This is also godlike on so many levels. It just screams older Peter coming out of retirement or some shit. The leather jacket, with the front being majority red with the black spider symbol, the back of it being majority black with the red spider symbol, is fucking epic. The way the colors are laid out to resemble the general design layout of Peter's suits, the black jeans with the black Timbs, I mean, come on. It's so fucking epic. I wish Toby would have had this outfit in No Way Home. Alright, I'm done slobbing on the knob of this game when it comes to the suits. Let's talk about the other characters and villains briefly. When it comes to MJ, she follows the same path as Peter. Instead of being a hot redhead that is way out of Peter's league, she fits the girl next door vibe to the fullest. Someone you really don't pay attention to until it's too late. Once again, perfectly in the middle between beautiful and ugly. The same thing goes for Miles, especially with him being mixed. They did a great job, in my opinion, of blending his black and Hispanic genes. This transfers over to the rest of the cast. They all look good in the grand scheme of things. Not too beautiful, but not just downright ugly. They're perfectly in the middle. Except for Black Cat. Come here, mommy! When it comes to the villains, this is where Insomniac really flexed on us. The thing is that they don't overdo it with the modern aspect of the designs, which is super easy to do. I'm not going to go over each villain to show this off, but I will go over one. That villain being Electro, who is the prime example of this. The first thing is that he has these metal panels that help him contain his electricity. They also help him control it so he can shoot them in whatever direction he wants or do whatever he wants. These panels are also a nod to his old costume design where he had electricity bolts going down his torso. The next thing is the scars on his face. If you just look at them on the surface, you won't see much. It just looks like he got into a horrible accident that fucked his face up. The thing is that it's a nod to his old costume's mask that has 7 electricity bolts going in multiple directions. This stuff right here is what I look for in my media because I'm such a detail-oriented person in real life. So this kind of stuff makes me happy and giddy when I connect the dots. This goes for all the other villains in this game as well, but I don't want to be here all day. Stuff like this is what makes Insomniac one of my favorite studios right now. So normally I don't bring up audio related stuff in my reviews, but with this game, I have to. The reason why is because of one overlooked detail that I've only seen in this game. Something that I've never seen in any other game that I know of. That being the inflections in Peter's voice when he's in combat or web swinging while on the phone. This has spoiled me and has become a huge nitpick of mine in modern games now, like God of War and such. It's such a small detail in the grand scheme of things, but makes a huge difference in my opinion. It just makes the world that much more believable.
I think there's a bigger story here, and I plan to be the one to break it.
Sure. So I can call you, like, whenever?
Yeah, whenever, whatever.
Speaking of the world of Spider-Man, let's talk about how you traverse it. I talked about it briefly in my Sunset Overdrive review. Now we can fully talk about it and break it down. So let's start off with web swinging. Web swinging is at its absolute best in this game. It feels like a hot knife going through butter, and then you spread that butter on the perfect piece of toast, accompanied with the finest strawberry preserves and orange juice. That is how good the web swinging is in this game. It took the building blocks of Spider-Man 2 PS2 to a whole new dimension, completely refining it to perfection in my opinion. Every web swing feels as natural as walking or breathing. Unless you're a baby, where you're not doing a lot of walking, but you are breathing, so shout out to you. Compared to Spider-Man 2 PS2 web swinging where it's raw and rugged, you're fighting with it the whole time, letting it know who's really in control. Which I'm not going to lie, I feel like the new web swinging could use a tiny bit of because sometimes it feels too hand-holdy. I'm pretty sure it's just me though, so take that as you will. Next up is point launch. This one is quite simple to explain. While you're web swinging, you'll see this circle icon appear over certain objects. When you do, you get this huge boosted jump off of whatever you landed on. The whole point of this mechanic is to help you get through areas where web swinging may not be optimal. Also to help keep the flow and momentum of your movement going as you traverse. Second to last is web zip. This was pretty simple too. When you press X on the controller, Spider-Man will shoot a web to yank himself to the closest thing. Last up is wall running. What it does is in the name, so do I really need to explain? Okay, so there is one little thing to explain. That is, when you get close to the top of whatever building you're running up, a prompt to press X will pop up. When you press X, Spider-Man will shoot a web and fling himself over the edge. It's a lot cooler than it sounds in motion. When you combine all of these together, it makes the most satisfying traversal ever in gaming. Next to his predecessor, Sunset Overdrive, rip in peace. It's so cool and satisfying to connect all these pieces together for as long as you can before fucking up. That's if you ever do. Now we're going to talk about combat. The combat in this game is basically the Batman Arkham games, just not as brutal, nor as complex with all the different mechanics implemented in that combat. Plus, this game has air combos and moves while Batman doesn't. The overall blueprint of it is here though. So that means the main things you're going to be doing is punching, kicking, dodging, webbing, and using gadgets. When it comes to punching, kicking, dodging, and webbing, those don't need an explanation. What is happening is in the name of them, so we're going to skip those. As for the gadgets, there are 8, so I'm going to rapid fire through them. First up are web shooters. What they do is in the name, so there's no need for an explanation. Next is electric web. Also, what they do is in the name. These are good for crowd control because it can chain through multiple enemies. Following that is the trip mine. With this one, you shoot it up against a surface or an enemy. When the laser that's emitting from it hits a surface or an enemy, it draws them in and webs them down. Another one is spider drone. This was my personal favorite because it shoots out electric beams that can distract enemies while also damaging them. The other one is web bomb. This one explodes, covering everyone in the general vicinity in web. Second to last is concussive blast. This one sends out a powerful sonic wave that sends enemies flying. Last is suspension matrix. This one makes enemies levitate in the air, opening them up to air combos. This one is also good for crowd control. I talked about the suits earlier, but I didn't mention each one comes with abilities. These abilities could be using the Iron Spider arms to detonating a negative shockwave using the negative suit. You can equip mods to them as well. These mods can range from reducing incoming melee damage to web attacks generating more focus meter. Focus meter serves 2 purposes in this game. One is to heal you. The other one is to give you the ability to do these awesome finishers on enemies. All of this stuff can be obtained and upgraded by using tokens. There are 6 in total: backpack, base, challenge, crime, landmark, and research. This is how you get each one. Collect Peter's backpack scattered throughout the city to get backpack tokens. Take down an enemy base from one of the multiple enemy factions to get base tokens. Do one of the many challenges scattered throughout the city to get challenge tokens. Stop random crimes throughout the city to get crime tokens. Take pictures of certain landmarks throughout the city to get landmark tokens. Complete whatever objective that is given to you at the many research stations scattered throughout the city to get research tokens. There's a skill tree to go along with all of this as well. There are 3 categories in total, with each one having its own playstyle. The first one is Defender. The second one is Innovator. The last one is Web Slinger. The way you flesh these out is by obtaining skill points. Skill points are obtained naturally throughout the game as you level up. Now it's time to talk about the things I hate. And when I mean hate, I mean it. First off is screwball challenges. If you know, you know. Next is collecting pigeons. I mean, seriously. After that is the brutes. They can stun lock you and combo you to death. So fuck them, straight up. Last and certainly least are the MJ and Miles missions. These missions boil down to you sneaking around some area trying not to get caught. If you do, it's back to the most recent checkpoint. Don't get me wrong, I understand the point of these sections, to give us a break from Peter, but also to help fill in some of the story from a different perspective. At the end of the day though, these still suck. They are a slog to get through every time, which leads to me rushing through them every single time. Alrighty, I think I pretty much covered everything, so let's wrap this thing up.
I will find a cure. I will. I love you, son.
If you couldn't tell, This is the best Spider-Man game to ever exist. Well, until Spider-Man 2 2023 comes out this week, which might take the crown because everything they set up in this one. If you consider yourself to be a Spider-Man fan in any way, shape, or form, you absolutely need to play this game. You are doing yourself a huge disservice by not. The visuals are absolutely top tier. The gameplay is absolutely top tier. The story, my God, the story is fucking phenomenal. Go and play this fucking game.